Hey, what's up guys, with Artruga Development. This is part 3 of the underdeck ceiling installation project. If you haven't seen the first 2, I'm gonna leave some links up for you to check that out. In this video, I am framing for the sub-ceiling. So we have the panels installed, and then beneath that, I'm putting in another sub-ceiling. So our sub-ceiling is gonna be straight across here. So I'm gonna be installing a ledger right there. I'm using this 2x6 that's gonna go all the way across. Then I'm using 2x4s to go across the entire section. Then we're gonna use 2x4s going this way so I can tie in everything together and then have enough room to nail in my ceiling. Quick thing to note, a little change, or a big change really, from the original plan. The original plan was to use vinyl solid soffit. We changed, looked at some pictures, and we really like the look of the tongue and groove pine boards. So I'm gonna be using those. I will pre-treat both sides of that wood before I go ahead and install it. I am installing the ceiling this way, so I'm gonna need my framing to go perpendicular to that so I can nail to it. I'm using these hangers for the 2x4. First step, we're gonna go ahead and hang this 2x6 ledger on the wall. I have not decided what to use for that yet, but once I do and I have it up, I'll check back with you guys and let you know how it all worked out. First things first, you gotta measure this distance here and make sure you are matching it there. If you have a laser guide, this is a good spot to use it. I have one, so I'm gonna try to use it. Otherwise, measure the distance. Typically there is a drop in here because the water is pitching away from the house, so make sure you account for that. In my case, that's 2 inches. So if I measure this to be 100, this is gonna be 102. So I gotta account for that when I come across to make sure that if I measure 100 here, I have to match it with 102 to account for the 2 inches, and that will be a straight line. So guys, I decided to use my Ramset to hang the ledger just temporarily until I screw it, and I'm going to show you what I'm using. I decided to use tapcon lag bolt screws, and I'll show you those in a second. Guys, if you're not familiar with the Ramset, I have a video on how to use it, what it is, and I'll leave that in the description below, so check that out. As far as lag bolts, these are the tapcons that I'm going to use. They're 3/8 by 3 per the instructions. These should be embedded at a maximum of 1 3/4 inches and a minimum of a 1 inch. So I chose a 3, which will give me an inch minimum plus a 1/2 inch wiggle room. I'm going to pre-drill the wood with a 3/8 inch bit, and I'm going to pre-drill the concrete using a hammer drill with a 3/8 inch concrete masonry bit. Guys, quick tip, you want to mark the maximum depth you're going to go with your bit using masking tape. All right guys, 1 down, plenty more to go. As far as spacing between the bolts, make sure you consult with your local code or whatever as to the spacing there. One more thing, you want to suck the concrete dust out of that hole that you just made. It'll make for a cleaner connection, so just make sure you do that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and finish this up, and then we're gonna come back and work on the hangers. Ledger is in. Now the next step is to install the 2x4 across. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in my hangers. Again, we're using these hangers for 2x4s, and I'm using 2 types of screws. You got 1.5 connector and 2.5 connectors. The 1.5 is gonna go here, so that's gonna be hooked into that ledger, and then the 2.5, since it's going at an angle, you needed a longer screw than the 1.5, so the 2.5 will go in here to tie in that 2x4. Hangers are in place, and I'm gonna go ahead and test out my first 2x4. Now I'm gonna drive my 2.5 inch right through here. So now I have one section completed going across. The next step is to have two 2x4s going this way. So that will make this whole section secure. And I'm gonna repeat the same thing across this way. Also, I wanna show you one thing. Up here, I mentioned in part 2, I think it was, or somewhere, that I might have to notch some of these to account for the gutter here. So just basically took my jigsaw and cut out a little piece out of it here. It's still pretty secure, and I went ahead and I was hanging on this for a while. And again, with beefing it across the way, it's gonna be even more secure. And I do not intend to hang anything super heavy. I think the heaviest thing I'm gonna hang here is gonna be a fan. And I think I'll have more than enough strength on this to hold a 10-12 pound fan. I'm ready to do my second section. This area here is going to be about 2 inches, so I cannot use the hanger that I've used there. Instead, I'm going to use a combination of this hanger and an L bracket. This also does not fit the height of it. I cut it with my angle grinder. So now my setup is like this. So this will be installed like that. So I'll have the support at the bottom and I'll have the support on both sides. And I need to notch my 2x4 so it fits in here. In a perfect world, I want to use the hangers as is. I don't even want to use those other braces. But again, this is my backyard. I'm comfortable using it. I know exactly what's going to be hanging off of those 2x4s. I'm also gonna load test all the framing before I go ahead and put my ceiling. If you're not comfortable with that, look for other alternatives. Again, this is just to give you an idea and to show you what I am doing for my setup. Second section is done. However, it did rain last night, and I'm so glad that it did. I was here in the middle of the night making sure everything is dry, and it was. Didn't have any issues anywhere except right up here. You see these drips? There's a gap right there, and that goes through pretty much the entire area here. So between the rim joist and the gutter, okay, because it's not flush, it could never ever be flush enough where it's watertight. And I'm not gonna seal or anything like that because this is a moving part. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna section off the gutter and I'm gonna terminate my ceiling right there. Let me show you what I mean. I'm gonna frame out this area here, just like that. And I'm gonna terminate my ceiling planks right here. And then I'm gonna use a vented soffit right here underneath the gutter. So that way, any water that comes down is gonna get through the vented soffit and just drip down here. And that area is outside of, let's call it the comfort zone, where everything is gonna be bone dry. Guys, I'm finally done with the framing. Let me show you. First off, I want to show you what I did, how I terminated the ceiling area right to here. And like I said, I'm gonna add a vented soffit down here as well. So that's gonna be in part 4. It's raining, just so happen to be raining, which is awesome. So you can see it's all wet out here. This is bone dry. The gutter's working perfectly fine. The only water coming out of the gutter is here. Couple of things you'll see here. I have 2x6s. I have 2x4s over here. Originally, the plan was to just use 2x4 for the whole thing, but this is a 10-foot span. There was a lot of give on the 2x4s, more than what I like, but I wanted to hang hammocks, maybe a swing. So I used the 2x6s in this section, and this is where I'm gonna use to hang all these heavier furniture or whatever. And then back here is just gonna be the TV and a ceiling fan or whatever. Obviously I'm gonna do the lights. Again, that will be in another part of this series. This is not a structural framing, okay? So you're gonna see me use a 2x4 hanger on a 2x6, for example. That is plenty for what I needed here. Nothing is gonna go on top of this, but by all means, consult with local code or whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm just giving you the idea. You can do whatever on your end. Also, in the areas where I'm using this type of brace, which is not the hanger like that one, I supported the joist, or yeah, I guess the joist, with these 2x here as well. Finally, what I'd want to say, if I would do this project over again, I would probably use 2x6s all over. That way I don't have to think about, oh, where can I hang this, where can I not? And there you have it, guys. That's a wrap for part 3. If you have not checked the other parts, I'm going to leave links in the description for you to check that out. Guys, if you like the video, please give me a like. Sub the channel if you haven't. It's the only way to support it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Stay tuned for part 4. See you guys on the next one.